Good evening, I'm Scott Thuman. Developing tonight, a major shakeup for more than 1,000 Virginia voters. The U.S. Supreme Court is allowing the state to purge 1,600 suspected non-citizens from the registration rolls. New at 11, 7 News' Carl Willis spoke with a group now aiding some of those affected.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin claiming a victory following a Supreme Court decision allowing more than 1,600 voters to be removed from the rolls. But some take issue that it's just days out from the election.
That just provides further comfort across the Commonwealth that this election will be secure, it will be accurate.
An emergency appeal from Virginia's Republican administration granted by the Supreme Court means that more than 1,600 voters purged over the past 2 months will remain off the rolls. That move coming after a federal judge initially found that the purge was illegal. The NAACP weighing in after Wednesday's reversal.
This emergency action of the Supreme Court continues to sow huge confusion.
7 News spoke with the Campaign Legal Center that is working with purged voters. What are you hearing from them? What is the feeling?
I think for folks in the immigrant community, there's even more fear there, right? They know that they're being targeted because they're naturalized U.S. citizens, and there's a real sense of disappointment too.
Danielle Lang, the CLC's Senior Director of Voting Rights, says U.S. citizens were caught up in this purge, some telling her that they never saw anything in the mail telling them about their voting status. Others say they may have been caught up in the voter purge because of a paperwork error made at the Department of Motor Vehicles.
Most of them did not want to come forward because they were afraid. These are voters who are both natural born and naturalized U.S. citizens. And eligible Virginia voters.
If there was a mistake, then the person is granted 14 days to respond and say, no, I am a citizen. And if they fail to do that and they are removed from the voter rolls, you can still same day register and cast a ballot.
And that is one of the only points that those on either side of this issue agree on.
Absolutely. We need to get that message out. Virginia does have same day voter registration. Folks who've been unlawfully purged can show up on election day at their polling place and register and vote.
Carl Willis, 7 News.
And tonight we're also hearing from one of the Virginia voters who had their name removed. He says he only found out after checking his registration following reports on the purge this summer.
So I understand that any state should absolutely do their best efforts to make sure that people are on there are the right ones. But I just felt like on this one, it came very suddenly. They claimed people were supposed to be informed. We were never informed that we had been dropped because I was accepted and then I was dropped. It wasn't that I applied and was not accepted, right? So that communication didn't happen. And, like anyone who actually have a right to be on those rolls, it's concerning, right, that you get bumped off.
Now, you heard from Governor Youngkin mention that you can register to vote on the same day as the election. So here's what you need to know about that. You must go to the polling place for the precinct where you live. You'll be given a provisional ballot, and that means that your vote won't be counted until the local electoral board can review your registration. In D.C., police are on high alert for any potential protests that turn violent as we quickly approach Election Day. This week, on at least 2 occasions, we heard city and police leaders say they were making preparations for riots. 7 News' Christian Flores joins us live now. And Christian, the preparations have already begun.
First off, it's important to note MPD Chief Pamela Smith says there are no credible threats between now and the election. However, expect to see a lot of police officers out on the streets to prevent any potential protests from escalating into violence.
But I want to be very clear. We will not tolerate any violence of any kind. We will not tolerate any riots.
MPD Chief Pamela Smith with this stern warning. Now and after the election, police officers will be on high alert for any potential protests that could escalate into riots. This was not the only time the word riot has been used this week. A council source confirms the city's assistant city administrator talked through various scenarios Tuesday, including what the city saw in 2016 and 2020, adding they are making all-encompassing preparations for, quote, large-scale riots and civil unrest. And a plan is already in place.
We will stand up a full activation next week, which means all Metropolitan members will be working 12 hours and depending on what happens, maybe a little longer, to ensure that we have enough officers on the street in every corner of our city.
With 100% staffing over the next week, MPD will be working in tandem with the U.S. Secret Service and U.S. Park Police and have already received commitments from other neighboring police departments for resources if needed.
I really appreciate the planning that everyone is doing for that DC and the area is doing.
It's needed. It's a big event. There's polarization. People have a lot of contention, and so you don't want something to happen. So you need to have police presence.
As MPD and other law enforcement agencies get ready, Chief Smith wants to emphasize this.
While we have not identified any credible threats to our city, we will remain vigilant and ready and prepared to address any issues or concern that may arise across our city.
The staffing preparations are for the next week through the election. Now, we saw a lot of fencing go up for Vice President Harris's speech last night. Actually, crews broke this down this afternoon, but expect to see a lot more fencing like this go right back up come January for the inauguration. Reporting live at the Ellipse, Christian Flores, 7 News.
And a reminder that early voting is underway right now in Maryland, Virginia, and D.C. The deadlines are right on your screen. And if you want to cast an early ballot in Maryland, the last day to do so is tomorrow, Halloween. In Virginia, the deadline is November 2nd, and in Washington, D.C., it is November 3rd.